Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this VRM Intel Live online. I am a little intimidated with the panel that we have right now, with the heads of the CBB and Chamber for some pretty amazing destinations for vacation rentals. And these guys are the ones making a lot of decisions and working with the city officials to help them make decisions for our benefit. So want to introduce this panel. First, we have Herb Malone, who is the president and CEO of the Alabama Gulf Coast Convention and Visitors Bureau, which covers Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, and Fort Morgan. We also have Joni Flynn, who is the VP of Sales and Marketing there, who is also at Resort Quest in Gaylord, so she's not new to our space before that purchase of Wyndham. We have Kara Riordan, who is she is the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Myrtle Beach. And last but not least, we have Mark Adams, and many of us were just in Gatlinburg for our last regional show. He is the president of the CVB in Gatlinburg. So you guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And everyone, if you have questions, you can type them in the question pane as we've been doing. So I just wanted to ask really quickly, and it's Herb, I'll start with you and Joni. What is the current situation in Gulf Shores? I saw a memo come through from the mayor. On the Alabama Gulf Coast, are things closed? Are the beaches still closed?
Beaches are still closed under the governor's order. That order will expire on April the 30th. There is about 3 different committees that have been formed to lay out what's the best way to recover. Those are still working. Mayor of Gulf Shores submitted his recommendation to one of those committees yesterday, and it found its way on Facebook and caused some confusion of people thinking that it's set in stone that we'll open April 1st, which was his recommendation for, I'm gonna call it a soft opening on the 1st and then a full opening on the 15th of May. And that came out the same day that the president, yesterday, and with that and the president's talk, it's got people confused thinking, okay, we're already open, and we're not.
Beach, are your beaches closed as well?
Did you ask for Myrtle Beach? Yes.
Yes.
Our beaches have been closed by the governor. Boat ramps actually opened back up today, so we're going to start to ease back open with some fishing and boating, but the beaches are still closed and under similar circumstances of the executive order that goes through April 30th of this month. So of course, we're all speculating and wondering what happens on May 1 right now, but right now the beaches are still closed.
And then Amy, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park remains closed. And we've been in constant contact with them to see, to determine an opening plan for the park. The park wants to work with Gatlinburg and Sevier County and getting it back open. But what we're hearing is it's probably going to be open in phases. We'll get most of the major roads open and some trails, but the welcome centers themselves will probably be a few weeks later. And I don't think there's not going to be any magic opening on May 1. I think it'll just be a slow rollout throughout May.
Mark, you faced a challenge or two in Gatlinburg. Herb and Joni are in a market that I'm pretty familiar with, as that's where I started in vacation rentals. And Karen, Myrtle Beach has certainly had its share of hurricane damage. So I wanted to really ask you guys, when you're looking at a situation like this, I'll start with you, Mark, and I know you don't want to say the F word.
Oh yeah.
What?
So,
yeah. How have these challenges helped you and prepared you and to face something like this?
Well, and what Amy is referring to is in November of 2016, we had wildfires that started in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and actually made their way into the town of Gatlinburg and some of the surrounding areas. And as a result of that, we had 16 people lost their lives in that fire, causing lots of damage. It's the largest natural disaster in the state of Tennessee. And we lost literally 1,000 cabins or so. 2,500 structures in total were lost in the wildfire. So a lot of the cabin community and the rental communities have rebuilt since then. Individuals have rebuilt. And what makes this a little bit different, Gatlinburg was closed for 10 days. So actually the National Guard came in, helped us secure the town, and we really were closed for 10 days, but we had an opening date. So we knew a plan, at least for the city. Yes, we had lost a lot of the vacation rentals, but most all of our hotels were spared. This is so different because it's not only Gatlinburg, and it's easy for each of us to think of it only as our own small area, but when you think about this is happening across the world, much different this time around. But we're actually pulled our playbook out from the wildfires, and we pulled it back out, and that's what we're following to get reopened here. You know, fortunately, knock on wood, you know, different from the wildfires. Again, most of the cabins have rebuilt, and they're brand new and waiting for visitors.
This constraint on demand and being closed on supplies is similar to some of the things that you've dealt with, Herb, you and Joni in Gulf Shores. Looking at things like 9/11 and the oil spill, what are you kind of drawing some parallels to?
Well, it's like every crisis we've ever had, from hurricanes to oil spills and all, they're all different. Even within the category of hurricanes, everyone is different. So you have to assess the situation, figure out and stay with our role. We try to stay with the role of communication. If we can help the cities or the counties in other ways, we jump in and do that as well. But each one has their own uniqueness. So kind of like Mark, we have a disaster preparedness plan that's built around hurricanes. But when the oil spill happened, we pulled that same plan out, changed the name on the top, and used about 3/4 of that process in getting with the oil spill. And we've done something similar to that now.
Karen, in Myrtle Beach, what kind of situation, how are you handling this situation, and what have you had in the past that's prepared you for this?
Well, as some of you may know, I arrived in Myrtle Beach from Williamsburg, Virginia, and I had been on the job all of 2 weeks when Hurricane Florence came through. So I got to be very, very well acquainted with our disaster preparedness plan for the Myrtle Beach area, literally 2 weeks on the job. And we have suffered with 5 years in a row of, if not a hurricane, a threat of a major hurricane. So we did turn there first as kind of our baseline for the playbook that we would write for this. But I agree with Herb and Mark that the biggest difference is that there's no end in sight, especially in the first days of this pandemic. It's not like a hurricane where, you know, okay, this has come through, we start to do damage assessment, we start to work with the media to tell them about what the financial impacts are, we start to get our community up and going, and you can really, you know, enact the recovery plan. This has just been, as you said, an artificially paused economy in order to protect the health and safety of residents, employees, and guests. And so it's very unusual with no end in sight. And as each day goes through, the way our team has really described it is it started as a health crisis, it then became a financial crisis, and now it's a humanitarian crisis. Our economy is so hospitality driven on the coast that we have the highest unemployment rate now in our state, close to 40,000 people out of work. That's 50% of our hospitality workforce in the Myrtle Beach area, North Myrtle Beach. And it's very extreme. And as a combination chamber and CVB, we are working with our small business community, but we're also working with our tourism partners. And most people feel like, oh, well, that hotel will be fine. It'll just come back on. That beach rental will just come back online at X date and will be fine. And I don't think that some of our community partners fully understood, early on at least, that many of those businesses will not exist next year. they are going to go out of business. We don't know what the exact extent will be, but this will not be a survivable event. So this is very, very dire on the coast. With that being said, our job is to offer hope and to have those recovery plans being prepared and to be working on it and trying to help our businesses and our tourism economy as best we can. To me, the other common denominator to a 9/11 is the amount of fear associated with this. With the hurricane, there's not that visceral fear. You know what it is. It is scary, just like an earthquake or a tornado. It's scary, but then it's over. This has such a fear component to it that I think that it makes our recovery marketing challenges quite distinct from what we normally have been working with.
I would agree with that, especially from a marketing standpoint, because you have to look at the source markets you would normally source customers from, and this is impacted everywhere you look. So those decisions are going to be really important because our own residents want to feel safe when visitors are going to be invited back into our community. So we are spending a lot of time with that.
I definitely wanted to ask you that, Joni. So I was surprised this time to see such a local outcry to get guests out. For instance, there's some of these homes that actually would have been really great places for some people to shelter in place, maybe from Knoxville and Gatlinburg, or maybe from Columbia and South Carolina, or maybe from Birmingham and Gulf Shores. But then we saw this huge cry to get people out of the area, and the social media platforms have been shocking to me, mainly because these destinations are so built on tourism anyway. So it was surprising to me to see something that we've been calling on this for the last 2 weeks in our industry, travel shaming. Joni, as far as the marketing stuff, have you been following this in Gulf Shores, or are you guys trying to do anything to build community relations during this time?
Well, we always do. We really reach out to our industry partners. We try not to step into the lane of the chambers. They're very effective at doing what they're doing, and Herb sits on both of the chambers in our area's board, so we have a good line to what they're working on. But we try and keep our industry partners, all the various sectors that comprises, informed. So our team has had at the start 2 emergency meetings a day. We are now down to 1. We had a daily industry partner email going out. That is now down to if it's needed, if there's something particularly important that they need to know about. Initially, we started, imparting some of the information about the special loan programs, but we backed away and said, no, that really has to be the chamber. So we're continually asking ourselves, is it our role to communicate this or someone else's? If it's someone else's, then we reach out to them. Say, we don't want to cross over anybody's toes here. That are you going to be communicating about this? Because we're getting questions from our industry partners about it. We're actually going to do our very first recorded webinar next week with some information about traveler sentiment and when we think people will be interested in traveling again. We're a participant with Destination Analysts weekly tracking study, and we found that to be very helpful for our team to use it as a planning tool and also to quell, queasy tummies about what's happening. And I've just discovered last week just one of our news clips had a link to a COVID-19 map that maps the impacts down to the county level. And so we're going to be using that to help with our media placements.
Oh, that's smart.
Well,
Not that I would expect you not to.
Well, it loves maps. So.
Exactly, like data. So my next question is, how are you guys? I know you guys have all been super busy working with Karen. You just got off the phone with the governor. How are each of you working with the city and state officials in this? And are you taking, and also how are you balancing the need to protect the community's health with the need to the financial impact of what's going on and the financial impact? I mean, like right now, some of these businesses, like Karen just pointed out, are not going to be here. I mean, that's not a given right now. So is it a health crisis in your mind from a CVB perspective or a financial crisis? And how are you working with the state and local officials? Mark, I'll start with you.
Yeah, here in the Gatlinburg and Sevier County area, I'll start just with Gatlinburg itself. So we established about a month ago when this started, we established a weekly phone call that I call the Gatlinburg Communications Call. And who's on that call is all of our board members, but also stakeholders, major stakeholders in Gatlinburg in the county. And we've been holding that call every week, and it's interesting how with new developments, and each week the topics change based on what's happening in the economy. The first week it was all about grocery stores and do we have enough, food on the shelves, and so it's evolved from there. But I just got off of one today where we actually had congressmen and senators on the phone call, as well as our local representatives. And so that's what we're doing here in Gatlinburg. For Sevier County, there's been pretty much weekly. We have meetings with the county mayor, the city mayors in the county, along with the tourism officials from each of the cities like Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and the city manager, sorry. So we've been meeting weekly to discuss, the current situations. And then as far as the state's concerned, our governor here in Tennessee has formed task force now, and a task force for each of the major segments like restaurants and lodging and tourism. So I'm fortunate to serve the state of Tennessee. We're such a long state, and we're really divided into 3 regions. So with the governor's task force for tourism, the gentleman who heads up the Memphis CVB will represent West Tennessee. The person, Butch Spiriton, who heads up the Nashville CVB will represent Middle Tennessee, and I'll be representing East Tennessee. And we're having weekly phone calls that go right back with the Commissioner of Tourism. And our information, it's a small group, and we did that on purpose so that the information gets right back to the governor. So each week, it's up to us individually representing our region to learn as much as possible from our segments and report back in.
Herb, also, I do want to hear how you're working with the states, but also Karen brought up that 50% of hospitality jobs are out right now. I think that's what she said. If I heard that right. Do you have any visibility on that on the Gulf Coast yet?
I don't have the numbers, but I can tell you that we're practically shut down. Very few people are doing any business. It's a ghost town almost. Some restaurants are trying to do the drive up and take away. A lot of them get out of that because it's just not profitable for them. It goes different from company to company. We mentioned Brett Robinson earlier. They didn't lay anyone off. Others have, and so there's a large amount of layoffs. There's also a lot of concern about the people who have filed for and gotten into the unemployment range, and then the extra $600 a week that the federal government is adding to that person now is making like $40,000, and getting them to come back once it's open, it's going to be a challenge, although the law requires that if they are offered their job back and decline, then they lose their eligibility for the government money. So
yeah, go ahead.
I'd say it's just I don't know, it's everything is kind of topsy-turvy in that regard.
So you've been talking to working daily with the city groups, right? And then how's that working on the state for you as well?
Well, we keep real close contact with our 2 cities, and then yesterday I was in I've been asked to be on a committee with Congressman Byrne, our congressman for this district. The governor had appointed a committee. She appointed with these 7 congressmen and asked them to put a business committee together. Of course, we talk to them frequently. We've got various people in Montgomery, our capital, that we stay in touch with, and we get daily information. Our 2 cities have retained lobbyists in Washington, and we get communications from them daily. So not a problem of communication. Sometimes there's a problem with difference of opinion of what we should do next.
Karen, how are you managing at the state level the financial concerns with the health concerns?
Well, again, it's a big balancing act, and so we're a combination chamber and CDB. So we have been spending an enormous amount of time on legislative issues at the state and the federal level. We're helping a lot of businesses first maneuver through PPP and those applications, as well as the emergency disaster relief and now the SBA loans. But like you've heard already, we're in very close communication with our governor. He announced Accelerate South Carolina yesterday, the statewide task force. Tourism is a major driver of the economy of South Carolina. So myself and other folks in Hilton Head and Charleston are all very involved in influencing some of those statewide decisions as they relate to getting tourism back up and running. And at the local level, our trading area is the whole Grand Strand, as it's called. So it does cross over a county and 5 mayors and municipalities. So we are working with them, as we always do, but in a much more rapid fire way right now. We have something that was out of our hurricane playbook called the Area Recovery Council, which I chair. So that's been a really great mechanism for us to get all those mayors and town council, city council folks, and other business leaders together really quickly. And as Mark was saying, kind of tackle every couple of days, well, what's the hot issue now? Is it food scarcity? Is it, other issues that are popping up across the community? So it's been very rapid fire. My team has joked that we are feeling very mission driven right now, more so than ever. I think people recognize what CDBs do sometimes more in an emergency like this than when times are good. But we are working just basically 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, like everyone else on this call, because things are moving so rapidly. Something that we agree on in our daily 9:30 communications call might be absolutely moot by 2 o'clock the same day. So then we're pushing out new information via social media, our emails, and so forth. And again, it is a little wacky, but we are actually kind of running 3 operations because the chamber is running its own operation underneath me to push out to our small businesses that are not in tourism. And then our CDB is working on that. And then we've got our legislative arm. So it's a kind of all 3 balls in the air right now. But I'm blessed to have a really great team and a business community that gets it and really cares about getting us back up and whole as fast as we can. So the key is just rapid communication and then trying to make decisions, knowing that not everyone's going to agree on everything, but we've got to reach consensus and move. And so far, that's really working well in the Myrtle Beach area.
Yeah, Amy, I was going to say, just to say to add on to what Karen said there, communication is definitely key right now. Like Karen, we are the chamber and we're the CVB. And I think it's important that from a chamber side of things, we actually went to the city and got contacts for every business owner in the city. Whether you're a chamber member or not, we went ahead and added you to the distribution list so that everyone is in as much communication as possible with each other. So everybody's hearing the same message.
With it, when there's not lodging revenue, there's not lodging tax revenue either. So how is this impacting budgets, and will the states kick in to provide some more destination marketing for these areas? will Alabama, will you get grants or, well, actually, Joni, you're probably the one filing for these on the marketing side.
No, it's more her.
Oh, okay. Where are we going to get more money, like to promote these destinations on the other side of this?
Let me handle that one. Number one, internally, we have a fairly healthy reserve fund. If you're on the coast and you don't have a reserve fund, you won't last very long. So we've got that to fall back on. State-wise, we're very fortunate. Mr. Lee Santel, who's been our state tourism director for, I think, 10 or 12 years or so, he recognizes clearly that we're the main generator of lodging tax for the state. And so we always get good cooperation from him. And we're just not at that point yet, but we will be working on some joint things as well with him. I don't see any, in Oilfield, we had grants for BP. That's not in the works. The money that's been coming out of Washington so far has not included CDBs much extent of any. I know the 501c6s are left out. We're a governmental entity. We were created by legislative act. Local governments were left out. There is a pot of money that's gone to each governor through the state, and we don't know yet how they're going to divide that up. We may get some of that, but it may probably just go to the tourism department. Then we'll co-op and work with them.
I have a question that came in for each of you. Actually, it's in 2021, meeting and convention business was ahead of pace due to events push. Oh, I'm sorry. Is 2021 meetings and convention business ahead of pace due to events pushing to the next year? And I'll add to that, what do you expect for your meeting and convention? Do you think that will reopen in 2020 at all? Mark, I'll start with you on that.
Yeah, we actually also operate the convention center here in Gatlinburg. So what we saw initially were cancellations through April. April led to May. We've got a few events in June that are still hanging on, but we're even getting some inquiries about July. Now, our convention is a little different. We do mostly state and regional events. And then we'll do a lot of cheerleading dance competitions with youth groups in the summer. But as far as comparing our convention center to other convention centers that I talked to, we feel that we were very fortunate to come out with as few cancellations that we have heard from so far. But the pace, most of the groups that did cancel, I won't say cancel, they actually booked for a future date. Some of them moved to later in the summer, some moved to the fall. The worst situation we had was two groups that actually canceled out of about 16 that were affected. And a couple of them did move to 2021.
Karen, in Myrtle Beach, you've got a pretty big meetings business as well, convention business.
And it's a very similar story to Mark's. We were very blessed that we have really been filling the pipeline with a lot of sports groups in March and April. That's become a really big part of our business. And most of those folks had to postpone, but they didn't want to leave Myrtle Beach. So a lot of them have rebooked for our fall. And if we could be so lucky, we could have an absolutely monster autumn because we have so much of business that has just shifted into the fall. We had a few, I'd say probably 10% of the business that moved to the spring of 2021. But for the most part, they're hanging in there with us. And again, we'll be taking a slightly different approach in terms of the potential business that we go after for the remainder of the year and next year. But we're feeling actually that that's been one silver lining in the overall playbook is our convention and our conference business. So hopefully as we start to reopen, that business will stay on the books for June, July, August, and then we'll roll into a pretty strong fall.
Yeah, and Herb, you've got the sports commission too. I guess everybody does a lot of this sporting, but events as well. A lot of those actually occurred in the spring. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me let Joni take that one, please.
Yeah, some of the spring events definitely have canceled, but it's looking like our summer events, which were really pretty chock-a-block in June and July with baseball and softball teams.
Yeah.
And they, apparently a lot of those types of events in other markets have canceled. So it looks like we may be getting a lot of new people coming to participate in these tournaments, which is kind of not something we would have expected, but it might be a very nice turn of events, no pun intended. And we have certainly had our sales team out and talking with all of their meeting clients. We have had some move their meetings forward, but some did cancel, but they want to definitely come back in the future. So we're still talking and booking meetings for future years now. People know we're going to get back to normal at some point, so that hasn't turned that off. But it's more the, how do you service the existing people, especially if your hotels, where most of their meetings are going to happen, are closing. And that has happened in a couple cases.
How are you guys modeling for the summer? Or what are you expecting in terms of future demand? Do you think that we're going to have a demand problem? Do you think that it's just artificially constrained right now, and once it's open, the floodgates will open? We have some differences of opinion in our industry on what the summer is going to look like. Although everyone agrees that the hashtag save the summer has been like the big thing here, is everyone is trying to save the summer. Can the summer be saved? Will it be the same, or will it transform? And anyone can take that. I've actually love to hear from all of you on this subject.
This is Karen. I still think the national model is right, that we're looking at a V-shaped recovery, and we do believe that there is a lot of cabin fever. There is a lot of pent-up demand, but of course it is going to be different because there will be certain cohorts that just simply will not travel this summer because of the fear factor that I described. They're going to be more cautious, but I think speaking for the Myrtle Beach area, we feel like we're well positioned. Being outdoors, like all of these destinations are, is a huge factor. Not being big cities, having a really robust drive market. Myrtle Beach is 92% drive. All of those things bode well for us to have a strong summer. It won't look like the summer of 2019 or the summer of 2018 in our estimation. It will be down because some people will still be delaying and kind of inching their way back into travel. But those, I'm calling them the intrepids, that do want to travel and won't be taking that cruise and won't be going internationally, are going to be looking for some new options. So I think all of us can agree that our loyal past guests will be back, might be on a slightly different schedule, but the other opportunity is, as Joni was just mentioning, to pick up some new business from people that perhaps were thinking about a very different type of vacation type this summer, and those options are not on the table for them now. So we have an opportunity to actually pick up a little share as it relates to some new visitors. So that's how we're looking at the summer, where we don't want to be Pollyanna. We're not in any way describing it as rosy, but we do believe the traveler demand will be there, and we have a plan in place ready to get implemented at the right moment to bring those visitors back.
Yeah, Mark, how are you looking at the remainder of this year?
I agree with everything that Karen said. Actually, all of our destinations, for the panelists that are on here today, we are fortunate and we have very loyal visitors that return to our destinations year after year. One of the things that we're looking at from a marketing standpoint is taking advantage of that. I'm not sure that, I think right now we talked about fear earlier. I'm not sure that people are going to venture out far beyond what they already know. Like if my family already goes to Myrtle Beach and we know where we're going to stay in the restaurants, and that's where we're going to go this year. I don't know that the people are going to take too many shifts. But I think Karen's correct. There's a lot of people that would typically in the summer go to a New York, a Chicago, a San Fran, these larger destinations. And I think that's where we're all going to be able to pick up, no matter where your vacation rentals are, you're going to be able to pick up some new clients there. But as far as it's a little tougher for me to get a handle on the cabin companies here, but I hope Karen's right. I hope everybody does have cabin fever and they do want to get out to save the summer, so to speak. But the cabin rental companies I've spoken with, they're starting to see more and more bookings in June and July. But more than the summer, they're really starting to see fall book up quickly, more rapidly than fall would actually book up. But and there's also now that now that the president and most governors are making decisions on schools, we don't know if some visitors are going to have last minute plans and come in May for a short weekend. That's what we're counting on as well, as opposed to a traditional week-long vacation. We think it's going to be more 3- and 4-day weekends up here. Again, you know, our marketing standpoint is wide open spaces, you know, the great outdoors, and that's true for the beach locations as well. I think, you know, whether you're a mountain or you're a beach, you're pretty positioned pretty well right now for that. But the hotels here in the area, in the Gatlinburg area, for May, on average, the hotels are at about 45% occupancy. So they have, they're on the other side of the curve. They were getting a lot of cancellations in May, and now they're starting to see the uptick in bookings in May. So about 45% for May. June, we're seeing about 60% occupancy in June already, and some of our hotels are even pushing the 70% right now. But they're still getting some cancellations, I think, as families determine what their financial budgets are going to allow. And then July is really, it's too far out. Most of our visitors don't book July quite yet. They'll start booking July and May. But the hotels are still sitting at about 45% occupancy for July already, which they're all happy with, believe it or not.
And we're a 96% drive market, and we really feel that the summer is going to be heavily dependent on regional people traveling within the region. I don't think you're going to get people traveling as far distances as we normally have had in the summer, just because of their state situations and, you know, what they might be doing with their family if they haven't seen people in a long time. So we do think that fall is going to be great. That's when we will have a lot of our events coming back online, and people often travel in the fall to our destination for events, and we'll have several new events that will happen then. I also think that typically in our market, our geographic sourcing and our audience sourcing is different with each season. We really think that in summer and fall, it's going to be a mixture that we've never seen before. In a lot of the surveys that we're part of, it shows that millennials want to get away very quickly once the all clear is given, not necessarily coming with their families. These are the moms and dads that have been educating kids at home, and they want an adult vacation. They want to get away.
We're just babysitting and nannying.
Grandma and grandpa will come and watch the kids. Yeah. Been able to do that lately. So we think that'll happen. We also are seeing a lot of search traffic on our girls getaway pages. So those moms want to get away together and do some pampering, and obviously beach is always focused for them, but also nature. We get a lot of women coming want to go on fishing trips. So that would be fabulous in the fall. Right now we're dealing with our fishing captains and how can they allay people's concerns about the way the boat is prepared to receive them and social distancing. And the large boats, that's possible. In the smaller, more inshore boats and things like that, not as good, but then there'll probably just be family groups that go out on those. So there's a lot of dynamics that are in play right now without any real answers yet. We are a key data platform area, and we are waiting with bated breath to get a new booking report that'll come to us next week. We've been
Yeah,
tracking.
we just saw one that showed a really big uptick in the last 4 days of booking activity. Jason was just on here yesterday.
Oh, good, because we've been looking at cancellations and booking such as we can, usually looking at 30 to 60 days. I agree with all of you. It's hard to get that longer than 60-day look right now. But typically, we've always been sold out in June and summer pretty early. A lot of those bookings happen early in the year or even at the end of last year. So a lot of those people have moved it forward. In the destination analyst study, it looks like people are aiming for June and July, and then October and December. So there may be more family trips, multi-generational trips happening in December to gather people for the holidays. So we're kind of up for any of that, ready to service anybody who wants to come our way.
Yeah, I was gonna pull up, get this out of the way. We just had some new data on adjusted occupancy for this summer. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the Gulf Coast, going back to your point about when things used to book, at this point in 2019, we would have already been 42% occupied for June, according to key data. And instead, right now, it looks like it's 24.7%. So just giving that kind of idea of what you're talking about. And it's been interesting to watch this pacing report from key data. And thank God we have data now. I mean, for our industry, that's been completely new to see some forward-looking performance data. And I think that one of the questions I have in here is, there some of these destinations across, you guys are in contact with a lot of other CVBs and other DMOs across the country. There are other destinations that are talking about staying closed a lot longer than what we're talking about here. There's one question that says Summit County, Colorado is restricting short-term rentals and hotels until June 1st. This is where Breckenridge and Keystone are located. Is there anyone else dealing with or hearing about county regulations that are preventing rentals? Have you guys been in contact with? No, it's much more. Johnny, while we're talking to you, in terms of messaging, what kind of marketing messaging are you putting out now, and what do you expect to do in the future, and when will you turn that on?
Okay, so we already switched, maybe 4 weeks ago to we'll be ready when you're ready, and digital and content, and a lot of changes to our website to offer content that people seem to be wanting to consume from home, planning or dreaming kind of aspects. We have a new TV spot that we are going to launch next week. It doesn't talk about the beach being open, but it does talk about all of some of the efforts that are being undertaken by our businesses to be ready for people. And then end of next week, we're supposed to have a totally brand new TV spot that will speak to the beaches being open, and that will be what we roll with as soon as we know when we're open. We know from our studies that about 14% of the people will be very anxious to leave and get out right away. Then there's a group of people that are sitting on the side of the pool ready to jump in, but they just need some encouragement. And then there's people that are saying, until this thing totally blows over, I'm not leaving my house. So we're going to try and find those first two groups of people in geographies that will be safe for them to travel. And so our targeting capabilities are really being focused upon right now. And our team is delving into that with regularity.
So a lot of our property managers are in Florida. I think that's probably not a surprise to you as far as our readership. Florida, the governor has made a decision to keep vacation rentals closed. Hotels can stay open. And the property managers are really are very frustrated with the governor's view on there. Is there any recommendations that any of you have of how they can work to influence that policy, to work with their own DMOs, their own CVBs or chambers, or what is their best path forward to try to influence that particular policy with the governor? Herb, do you have any recommendations?
Well, first off, let me square this away with you. Our lodging, our hotels, our campgrounds, our vacation rentals, none of them were forced to close. A lot of them closed by their own choice. But when the beach is closed, you know, there's no customers. We're operating right now at somewhere around 2% occupancy. That's virtually nobody. So they're ready to go back to work. You know, I don't know where in our case, our lodging is made up, the majority of our lodging is made up of vacation rentals, both condos and beach houses. So I don't have a point of reference when they single out one or the other and say you can't be open now. Our condos have a lot of them operate pretty much like a hotel.
Karen, in South Carolina, is there any differentiation in how the lodging sector is viewed?
No, that's why I'm a little surprised about what you said about Florida. We on the coast did something pretty unusual in that the governor didn't order hotels closed initially because he was one of the last governors in the country to actually do a stay-at-home. But it was actually our mayors in collaboration with the business community making the decision that we were going to voluntarily close all lodging reservations through April 30th. So people could service the guests that were currently in those properties, but then as that naturally ended, say someone needed to check out on April 3rd, then no new reservations were allowed of any lodging type. So, and then the governor put the state stay-at-home, stay-at-work order in place. So we don't believe that there should be any distinction between lodging types. We do have a lot of very large campgrounds. As you know, we have a very robust condo and beach rental category, as well as traditional hotels and motels. So we are pleased that South Carolina treats them all equally. And right now, that's why we're working so closely with the governor to make the right decision about the timing of beaches being open, and then when we can start to slowly open up all lodging accommodation types. But there will be no distinction from what we can tell between vacation rental properties and hotels.
Mark, how can property managers work with you right now? I mean, right now we were joking that all of a sudden the CVB is sexy again. Like, I was like, yeah. It's always in a bad time that they come and say, "Hey, what are you doing for me?" But what are you doing for us? Well, I mean, how can property managers work with you?
I think you're going to see the CVB in our chamber reach out to especially the cabin rental companies, and we're going to actually act as a conduit. Not that they don't already work together, but I want them to work together more closely with the attractions and restaurants in Gatlinburg. And I think the consumer is going to be looking for an extra value added, something that's going to come with that vacation rental, whether that's tickets to an attraction or some sort of gift certificate from restaurants. I think they're going to look for something that's just a little value added. But as far as what more can we do for them, we are obviously one of the Google search terms for us is Gatlinburg cabins. I mean, that's what people are Googling. So for us, it's just a matter of taking advantage of what we have here, which is the scenic beauty, getting that message out there. Maybe we work with our cabin companies and the condos and the vacation rentals in the area, not just Gatlinburg, but a unified message throughout our county. Because what we know here in Sevier County, is the average consumer, they don't know where Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, or Gatlinburg begins or ends. They just know they're here. So I think it might be good for us with a unified message in our particular situation. I know that may not work for everyone, but we think it is going to work for us here.
Well, you kind of had the same thing, Joni. You've got Fort Worth and Gulf Shores. And
Yeah.
really, Karen, you've got the whole Grand Strand. I guess, you know, you kind of have a similar situation.
We've moved to beef up our pages on our website that talk about the different lodging types and what you can expect. They tend to appeal to different people at different times with different stay parties. So we do know that we've had very active engagement with that new content, and the IP referrals have continued to be strong. So that's a good thing. We've also done a lot of work on our search engine optimization on our website, which has helped a lot with people discovering important content that most visitors want to see. And we have made a big deal about a recovery page on our website. So when people are thinking about coming back, they'll have a good understanding of what businesses are open, what sectors are open, what's going to be available to them. Now we're going to have to go out and, you know, we've spent a lot of time the last 3 or 4 weeks getting that all accurate for people that are closed. Well, now we're going to have to jump back in the pool and get them all active for who's open and all that. So it's a continual exercise for our team. But one thing I'll just mention, which I learned this morning, which is kind of nice, at this time of year, we're going through and pulling together all the information for our vacation guide for the next year. And it's usually like pulling teeth to get anybody to reply, and no problem whatsoever. We're getting lots of information, and that's great. And maybe this situation will help our industry partners understand the importance of returning that communication.
Yeah.
Karen, in Myrtle Beach, how should property managers work with you if you're Elliott or Condo World? Like,
I think it's all about alignment. I think it's about communication and it's staying aligned. We think that we, again, have great relationships already in existence, and it's just staying close to situations. As I mentioned before, early on in April, we were assisting those companies as they were working through refund policies with their clients. And again, trying to understand how to move business to later part of this year or next year. There's a very, very strong loyalty tied to the vacation rental marketplace, and in some cases, maybe more loyal than an independent hotel visitor. And so we're just working with them to come up with ideas for ways that we're going to be even more flexible and more empathetic towards our visitors when they are here. And even their booking patterns, so that if they think that they want to come in mid-May, but then something else happens in their family situation and they need to move it again, let's work together to figure out the right messaging to make that happen, and have as flexible a policy in place as possible, so that we are not turning off that customer, that guest, for the long term because we were thinking about a short-term gain. And I know that's hard to say when occupancy is close to 0% and there's no revenue coming in, but this is a marathon. This is a long game. And so we do have to be thinking about our future, not just this summer, but many summers to come and many years to come. So that's what I would encourage, really, is our community in the vacation rental marketplace to just stay close to us, stay aligned. Let's talk through ideas and differences of opinion and see if we can come to consensus on the big stuff, so that we can have as successful a remainder of the year as we possibly can.
I would also encourage industry partners to talk with your DMOs about what programs they will have running at that time that your area reopens and for the fall. We have some very active co-op programs that seem to get us kind of a slow start this year, but we will have opportunities for industry partners to be part of those, whether it's on TripAdvisor or retargeting from our website or on Expedia. We know about 1/3 of travelers are interested in an offer. I like you, Mark, I hope that they will be more value-added offers, because given where the occupancies are, discounted offers is just going to be harder to recover from down the road. But we are really going to be pitching that to them, and we hope that we'll actually get a lot of new participants who maybe haven't tried that before. But you know, we put in a substantial share of our dollars against their dollars in this, and it's probably the least cost method for them to be able to get their message out and enjoy some guests flowing their way.
You know, there's that 80-20 rule, right? That 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And it does seem like in some of these destinations that you've got a handful of property management companies that contribute, you know, and co-op and support events and sponsorships and things like that. And there are all these other companies that kind of ride the coattails, including some of these larger multi-destination companies that are not invested in the local communities. Mark, do you think this is a time that you could get some more of these newer companies on board to participate in some of your co-op efforts?
I definitely think so. We were already, before this pandemic, we were looking at new opportunities of what the future, what's the next step of co-op opportunities would be. For example, here in Gatlinburg on just a DMO level. So Dollywood, Dolly Parton's theme park is technically in Pigeon Forge. And we have not done any co-op advertising with Dollywood. She's been there 35 years this year. And about 2 years ago, we actually started some co-op advertising with Dollywood, just because we knew it made sense for us to co-op together again. And a lot of those visitors were, you know, the city of Gatlinburg and Dollywood. Dollywood's the #1 attraction in the state of Tennessee. It made sense for us to co-op some things together. But, you know, one of the things I think we're going to see as well when it comes back to the safety and getting over the fear is just when people are starting to get rid of shampoo and conditioner in rooms, I think you're going to see hand sanitizers all of a sudden appear in vacation rentals and in hotel rooms. And even for attractions, you know, I think you may be buying a ticket and handed a 1 ounce, you know, sample size hand sanitizer, at least in the short term. So, so I think it's just going to be a completely different world. And as we've said earlier on this call, you can make a plan, like Karen says, you can make a plan at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that plan completely changes, you know, in 6 hours or 1 day or 2 days. So I think that's not going to stop for the next year. I think we're going to continuously be looking at that. You know, most of us, I think most of the DMOs took their marketing plan, just basically folded it up and threw it in the trash. I mean, we all had to, you know, you kept portions of it, but you really had to look at, you know, again, who you're marketing to and when you're marketing to them. For example, for us in Tennessee, Nashville, I won't call Nashville a hot spot, but they certainly had more cases than we did in East Tennessee or in Kentucky or Ohio. So we may pause our advertising and not really reach out to Nashville, even though it's our #1 feeder market, for another month or two.
That reminds me of something. Karen, on your welcome centers, have you changed anything there in terms of what, are they closed? Are they open? And if they're reopening,
They're closed. Our welcome centers are closed.
When you reopen, are you doing hand sanitizer, anything different? A lot of people come through these welcome centers.
Yes, we will be looking at that. We already had some of the kind of like Purell stands already in our welcome centers, and we operate the welcome center at the Myrtle Beach International Airport as well. But yes, we'll be looking to see if there are additional protocols. Perhaps at least initially, our staff will be wearing masks and you know, making sure that they're using a gloved hand when they hand out a visitor guide or a small bottle of hand sanitizer and those kinds of things. So yes, it changes everything, not just marketing. It changes our operations as well and our thinking. So that's we've been talking about it as react and then rethink rethink everything that we thought we knew in January, and then start to rebuild for the recovery. I think is the only really way to stay ahead of this, and to stay flexible.
If you had a message for property managers, what would it be?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. The message I'm trying to get to them is we don't need to think about the past and how we've operated. We've got to operate differently now, not in the future, but now and into the future. A quote from one of the destination analyst reports really caught my attention when it said that the consumer is going to avoid destinations slow to put social distancing measures in place. Can't say all those words. Anyhow, you know, that what we do in our welcome centers, yes, we've got to take different options, not just what they mandate to us, but what the consumer mandates to us. I think in the past, the consumer that's looking for fun and excitement and good times as a priority, I think they took health and safety kind of for granted. I think they're putting the health and safety up front. So we have to show the right thing to them. Our cities that have the parks and the beaches and the lifeguards and all that has to show it. But the businesses, not just the lodging, VRMs, the hotels, the restaurants, everyone has to show it.
Amy, I think too, if you look at the census, you know, I think our industry, we've relied on sight. And I think now we're going to be relying on smell. So every vacation rental needs to smell fresh. It needs to smell new. It actually needs to smell like bleach and Clorox and, you know, a swimming pool. So to know that it's clean, I think that's, people are going to be relying on their sense of smell more than ever now.
Completely agree.
Great point.
We're also working with the city of Myrtle Beach to do a huge beautification effort right now. So while there isn't much open except for our golf courses, which are open for local play, and some of our restaurants that are valiantly trying to survive to curbside and takeout, the city of Myrtle Beach has entered into a huge cleaning and beautification effort. And I know North Myrtle Beach has as well, and so the surrounding cities and towns, we're all looking to actually just take our game up a whole other notch in terms of the way it looks, like you said, the way it smells, making sure that it's absolutely pristine so that when our visitors do come back, it just is an amazing wow experience. So I think that is something we appreciate, that the local governments are recognizing that they can be doing something even while it's pretty quiet right now to prepare as we go into the heavy summer season. So we're appreciative of that.
Yeah.
We've also talked with our sports commissions and sportsplexes so that they have an effective disinfecting approach and can talk about that with sports planners. And obviously the team coaches and the parents are most interested in that. So we do add that kind of information on our website as well.
Guys, I know I kept you longer than I told you I would, which is, I'm sorry about that. I just want to take advantage of every moment that I had with you. I'm gonna let you guys go back to working for us and for our industry. I can say this to you, that your job is so appreciated right now from our readership and the property managers in your communities. I think that I just want to say for all of them, thank you so much for all the work that you're putting in during this time. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you.
Let us know if there's anything we can do for you, anything that you want us to get out to property managers. We're happy to help in any way that we can. You guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
All right.
Have a great
Keep it
afternoon. Stay safe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.